Kamala Harris does not have a foreign policy proposal. Let's be absolutely clear about that. And all of her statements in regard to the broadening and ongoing war in the Middle East has essentially been in line with what we've been hearing from Joe Biden. So I'm sorry, I can't let that lie stand. She would not calm the situation down in the Middle East. Now, to be clear, I don't believe Trump would either. Trump has just been funded by Miriam Adelson to the tune of $90 million in order to allow Israel to annex the West Bank. But please don't lie about Kamala Harris allegedly having a better plan on foreign policy. She does not. In fact, she can't stand Palestinian protesters at any of her events and brushes them off as if they mean nothing. So that's the reality of her foreign policy. I'm not gonna let someone lie about that. Go ahead, Cenk.
If you enjoy content like this, then make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video. Ana Kasparian is absolutely putting the nail in the coffin of the woke left, of the Democrats, and of Cenk Uygur, absolutely breaking all of their hearts. Let's get into this clip here of Ana Kasparian going scorched earth against the Democrats, against Josh Shapiro, and breaking the hearts of all the Young Turks fans and of Cenk Uygur. Let's check out this episode here of the Young Turks.
Governor, given how unpopular polls show President Biden is, has Vice President Harris done enough to distance herself from President Biden?
Kristen Welker repeatedly pressed Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro on the question that has become a huge issue for the Harris campaign. How exactly would her leadership differ from that of Joe Biden's? And I think the way she framed the question there was a good way of framing it, because yes, this election, of course, is between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, not against Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. However, when you consider the fact that Kamala Harris is Joe Biden's vice president, and when you consider the fact that Joe Biden is an unpopular president, well, she needs to have an answer, and her supporters and allies need to have an answer for this question. Let's see how Shapiro answered it.
You know, Kristen, I think what is clear is this is a race, not between Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, but between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And on that, there are clear contrasts. Kamala Harris wants to cut taxes for the middle class and small businesses. Donald Trump's tariffs and his economic policies would raise costs for middle class families. I think Kamala Harris has a strong and competent approach to foreign policy to try and calm tensions overseas. Donald Trump just wants to throw a grenade and everything and create more chaos and more suffering across the globe. I think you have a clear contrast on freedom between those two candidates. Kamala Harris wants to restore Roe. Donald Trump brags about how he's ripped away the freedom from millions of women across this country. So listen, I think you have a clear contrast between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and voters are going to the polls literally right now all across America, focusing on that choice, not a choice between Kamala Harris and Joe Biden.
Kamala Harris does not have a foreign policy proposal. Let's be absolutely clear about that. And all of her statements in regard to the broadening and ongoing war in the Middle East has essentially been in line with what we've been hearing from Joe Biden. So I'm sorry, I can't let that lie stand. She would not calm the situation down in the Middle East. Now, to be clear, I don't believe Trump would either. Trump has just been funded by Miriam Adelson to the tune of $90 million in order to allow Israel to annex the West Bank. But please don't lie about Kamala Harris allegedly having a better plan on foreign policy. She does not. In fact, she can't stand Palestinian protesters at any of her events and brushes them off as if they mean nothing. So that's the reality of her foreign policy. I'm not gonna let someone lie about that. Go ahead, Cenk.
Yeah, so.
Also, not only does Kamala Harris not have a stance on foreign policy, by the way, she doesn't really have a stance on anything. Like, it's not just the foreign policy. It's not even just her political policy. It's whenever she's asked, like, how are you different from Joe Biden? What would you do different from Joe Biden? There's no answer. There's nothing. It doesn't compute. She doesn't care because she knows that all they have to do, all the Democrats have to do to get their voter base to vote for Kamala Harris is to say she's not Donald Trump. And that's it. And they all go out and vote for her. And it worked in the last election, right? Like Joe Biden, he doesn't even have a functioning brain, and he beat Donald Trump just based on the fact that he's not Donald Trump. He's not the orange man. He doesn't have mean tweets. Like, that's genuinely it. So Kamala Harris believes that all she has to do is just not say anything ridiculously stupid, so not take any hard stances to piss off her voters. and just say, hey guys, I'm not Donald Trump, vote for me. And she has a good chance of winning. And apparently she's right, because her entire voter base is apparently that gullible and that just stupid.
I agree with Anna on both fronts. First of all, it's not even worth discussing the foreign policy. Whenever you ask her, she says, I know about Palestinian grief. I've heard about it. I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm going to keep sending bombs to kill your family members. Yeah, Trump would kill more of your family members, so you should vote for me. I'm killing less of your family members. No, that's exactly Biden's policy. No difference at all, zero. So now the reason you have to make a difference between you and Biden is because Biden is deeply unpopular. I know that hurts the feelings of Democratic voters.
But it's the truth.
But it is the reality, and he's in the low 30s, sometimes high 20s. Country's going in the right direction is at 25%. If you say that, yes, Biden nailed it, we're going in the right direction, you're going to lose the election. That is super clear. So you have to find a substantive way of saying, this is what Joe Biden did, I appreciate him. You don't have to throw him under a bus, right? But this is what I'm going to do. So one easy way to do it is say, Joe Biden, and I'm going to do this instead of, right? But they don't even have and. That is such bad preparation. And it's really, guys, it's not about pleasing us. Who cares about us? You have to make sure that you get the right message to the voters. Otherwise, they'll think you're the same as Biden and they'll vote against you.
Now, let's watch. And I want to give Kristen Welker credit.
And she is. I mean, she is the same as Biden, right? But in my opinion, she's even worse. Like, and I know that's crazy because Joe Biden, like I said earlier, doesn't really have a functioning brain. But like, dude, Kamala Harris is possibly the most insufferable presidential candidate that I mean, definitely that I have ever seen. Like, it is nightmare fuel to think about me having to listen to Kamala Harris's presidential speeches. Like, that is absolutely nightmare fuel. Like, it's one thing, like, you know, the Joe Biden thing, it's hilarious. We laugh at him. He poops himself on stage. What a joke our country is, yada, yada, yada. Listening to Kamala Harris give speeches and do the little cackle thing, and oh my goodness, dude, it is literally nightmare fuel. So, yeah, her not having stances on anything is different from Joe Biden not having stances on anything, because Kamala Harris is the most unlikable person to possibly exist on the earth ever.
Because she's one of the few hosts on these morning shows, Sunday morning shows, who actually asks tough questions and tough follow-up questions to both sides. And I really do appreciate that. So she wasn't happy with Josh Shapiro's answer, so she tried again and again. Let's watch.
I understand what you're saying, Governor, but polls do show that more Americans feel as though President Biden's policies have hurt them rather than helped them. So can you name one key policy difference between Vice President Harris and President Biden? How would her administration look different?
You know, I've been really encouraged by the amount of energy that Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, has put into focusing on how she will cut taxes for small businesses. The focus on childcare tax credit expansion, that's something I've done here in Pennsylvania. We've seen that work to ease the burden on families. I think a focus on those kinds of things is particularly important, and those are the kinds of things I think Kamala Harris has brought specifically to this race.
Those aren't necessarily differences, though. They're an expansion or a tweak to some extent to what's been done. Can you name one policy difference?
Well, listen, again, the contrast I am focused on, Kristen, is between her and Donald Trump. And on that, I think it is clearly different.
So just to reiterate, the reason why this question keeps coming up for the Harris campaign is because Biden's unpopularity can be a real liability for her in the election. In fact, in mid-September, the Democratic Research and Polling Initiative Blueprint conducted a national poll that tested various potential statements that Harris could make about herself and Biden. Those that performed best, the polling found, were those that displayed a clear break between her and Biden, while those that performed worst were those that portrayed a future Harris administration as building on the accomplishments of the Biden era. But any mention of Biden, the polling found, led to less support, even if the position it had Harris taking was the same.
Yeah, so Biden is toxic. That hurts Democrats' feelings so much that they want to say, no, it's not. I never believe any numbers if they come out against us. I don't believe. Guys, you're going to lose the election if you don't recognize the reality. So let me give you suggestions as to what she could do, because we always try to be constructive. First, start with the thing that she's not going to do, even though I think it would almost guarantee her the election. If she said, hey, listen, Israel killed every leader of Hamas and every leader of Hezbollah. If they don't withdraw now from Gaza, I'm going to and sign a ceasefire, I'm going to stop the funding. If she did that, she'd pick up about 5.
Yeah, that'll never happen, because if she did that, then something, they wouldn't allow her to run for president. If you know what I'm saying, you have to pander to that country, Ben Shapiro's favorite country, if you want even a shot at running for president. And we know how that thing goes. If you know, if you don't, then God help you.
Points that she would lock in Michigan.
Yep.
She would win, but she won't do that because she thinks following her donors' commands are more important than winning this election. And that's God, you should hold her accountable for that. That is unbelievable that she's making that decision. But every politician in America, unfortunately, does that. They've lost their minds, if you ask me. Okay, but put that aside because she's not going to do it. Then you go to immigration. You could be honest. And this is a real risky strategy because politicians don't like being honest. But you could say, hey, listen, we tried a certain thing on immigration. And even though we did this, and this right, and we had the right intent, it wound up causing a lot of new immigrants into the country because...
Yeah, she's not going to do any of this, Cenk. Like, come on. Like, who do we think Kamala Harris is? Like, let's be real. Like, Ana Kasparian knows the deal. This guy's so delusional enough to think that Kamala Harris is going to admit that she did something wrong. The Democrat way, like Cenk Uygur just said, and I'm sure Ana Kasparian agrees with him 100% on that, is just acting as if every single number that goes against you is fake. Acting as if every mistake that you made never actually happened. That's how you do it. So all Kamala Harris does whenever somebody brings up the immigration crisis or the crime problems, all she has to do is say, oh no, that's fake. Kamala Harris, what are you going to do about the immigration problem? Oh, there's no immigration problem. Oh, okay, problem solved. That's how it works. So Kamala Harris will never admit that she did anything wrong. She has no incentive to. Democrat voters don't care about that. Like, who are we talking about, Cenk? Like, that's ridiculous. Let me know in the comments, though, what you guys think about Ana Kasparian and Cenk Uygur. I mean, they're definitely in panic mode. You can see it. They want Kamala Harris to win desperately, but they kind of see the writing on the wall. And I think, I'm not going to say 100%, but I think it's looking pretty good for Trump as long as there's no foul play in this election, if you know what I mean. Because like I said, in the last election, I thought it was looking pretty good for Trump too. And then, as Donald Trump put it, they found a bunch of votes overnight, and now we have Joe Biden as president. I mean, anyway, let me know in the comments what you guys think about Ana Kasparian and Cenk Uygur talking about what Kamala Harris could do to possibly win this election, but also at the same time stating that she has no policies, she has no positions. Let me know in the comments what you think about this whole Ana Kasparian versus the woke left situation.